what I want to kind of give you guys is an introduction into what archaeology is and how it fits in this entire science of history, as it's colloquially called. So this is like a dip in a very big ocean that I'm going to take you through. The main reason why we learn history is to know what's happened in history, and so that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past. History, the word history, comes from a Latin term called historia. It's called the narrative of the past. History in itself is recollection of stories from millions of people who have lived and died before us. And we kind of try to recreate that history from their eye. The thing is, there are many ways in which we study the past. So first one, say I will start from the right, is geology. So geology is the study of Earth. So Earth was formed around 4 billion years ago. So it is a study of from that time till now, how the current continents are moved. So that is geology. Then is something called paleoclimatology. This is the study of climates from the past. This is important because today's global warming, we could find out because people went into Antarctica, drilled cores like hundreds of feet into the ice, and found out that the climate in the past was far colder than today what it is. So people found out after industrialization, the entire climate is getting warmer. And that's how global warming kind of theory was put forward and was accepted. Then comes paleontology. So paleontology is the study of animals and plants from ancient times. So your study of dinosaurs will come up over here. Like everything which from the when the first life came on Earth, somewhere around 2 billion to 3 billion years ago, till what we call the Holocene era. So it is the age of mankind. So which started around say 200,000 years ago. That entire time frame falls under paleontology. And now comes to the last part, anthropology. So anthropology is the study of human culture. So anthropology is the study of what makes us humans. And that starts from the evolution of humans. Like humans need food, water, companionship. However, each and every group of humans kind of solve these problems in different ways. So that people in Europe have the same needs as people in Asia, as the same as people in Africa. But the way people, have solve these problems, their food is different. The way of they communicate would be different. The clothes are different. So that falls in the anthropology. Now, anthropology has four main subfields. And the first is archaeology. So archaeology is a study of human culture by analyzing human remains. So whatever is dead and buried, the study of that is archaeology. So it's a study of human culture in the past. Second is biological anthropology. This is a study of how humans adapt to a certain kind of an environment. Your cultural anthropology is about human culture, is how we dress, how we live, how we eat. All our festivals will come here, how we celebrate. And then the last is called linguistic anthropology. It's about languages. So each one of us, so there are about hundreds and thousands of different languages in the world. So a linguistic anthropologist will study all these languages and how these are related to each other. Now the basics of archaeology. So archaeology is a set of theories, methods, and techniques for the study of human behavior, but from the past. This is what differentiates it from all the other streams of anthropology, which are current human culture. It analyzes the physical remains, so they can be bones or pots or buildings or say canoes, ships, weapons, houses, and kind of also sometimes flora and fauna. So what the humans eat, what the humans use as clothing and all, and kind of form an image of the past. Now, the basic question everyone asks is why in archaeology everything is buried? Like, why do we have to dig? So the thing is, apart from certain structures that you can see, so something like the old forts or something like you could also see Taj Mahal. So those structures are still standing, but most of the history is now long buried underground and can't be seen, to the naked eye. The reason being, what happens is anything that you leave on the ground starts eroding in a while, or after a while, layers and layers of dust start, falling on top of it. Or sometimes there are big floods, so entire civilizations kind of buried, or there are big landslides. Sometimes there are volcanic eruptions. The famous town of Pompeii in Italy was buried by a volcanic a volcanic eruption for 2000 years. The cities of Harappan were kind of flooded and they were buried underground. Through thousands of years, anything that is left on the ground slowly starts sinking into it, either through natural catastrophes or by natural means. Now, what are the key concepts of archaeology? The first is a site. The site is where something has happened in the past and where the digging or the investigation happens. The second concept is called evaluation. So that is the research of that site. So many times when you kind of come onto a site, you dig what is called trial trenches. So to see if there's really something underneath or it is just sand or soil. Then comes the main excavation. We'll learn more about excavation in the further slides. There's something called fill. So a fill is, a disturbed earth, rubble. So many times when we have food, people kind of throw their food outside the homes. So collection of that dirt, rubbish, garbage is called a fill. Surprisingly, the fill is the greatest evidence for archaeologists because it gives a very good understanding of the people because it tells what the people ate, how they kind of what they ate, how they ate. That's a very important clue. Then comes something called spoil. What happens is after an archaeological excavation, huge amount of dirt and ground has been excavated from the ground. That soil and dirt is called spoil. You have to dispose it off very carefully. And the next term that you will kind of hear is called a find. The find is whatever you kind of locate in the ground, which may be of importance, is called a find. Then something is called features. So features are the land features. Those that so how the kind of the contours of the land, that is called a feature. Then other word that we will hear is called structures. So these are all the building structures. The other two terms are now important. The first is called a layer. Now, as you can see in the image, so these are all the layers. So you have the light green, the medium green, the dark green. Can you see the pointer, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the layers of soil. These layers are very important because it gives us an understanding of how old an artifact is. So if something is closer to the ground, the upper layers, then we can say that that artifact is not that old. Or something is very far below, like something like this, then we can know that the artifact is very old. Now the most important concept is called a context. What happens is if we find something like this, we can only tell that this is a clay pot which is kind of red in color. There is no more information what this pot can give. That is where context comes in. So the context sets us it tells us how that pot was used. So the context of this pot. So now what can you tell about this pot? The same pot in different situations will tell us much more about. So if we had found, if the same image is without the skeleton, then we could say these are just discarded utensils, nothing more. But now you can tell that this entire culture believes in something called afterlife, that this person was valued, that they put the pot so that this person can take it to the afterlife. So you could say so many more things. That's why context is important. So the main thing about archaeology is what we do is recreate the past. This is Rome. So this is how central Rome looks like. But through archaeology, we have been able to recreate the glory of what it was. It kind of gives us an image or glimpse in the past. We'll never be able to go into the past. So this is Harappa. Now, what we see today is only like ruins, and that too they're not clear. But through archaeology, we have been able to recreate a very vast different world. An entire culture made up of traders, artisans, with sophisticated engineering, with plumbing, a culture made up of independent city-states. So just from ruins, we have been able to recreate an entire different culture. The most important part of any archaeological site is the excavation site. So now we'll go to the question. How do you locate one? So there are many different ways of locating a site. What happens is sometimes some farmer is digging for his farm and he finds something. Then he kind of tells the archaeologist that he has found something. And then the team of archaeologists will dig at the site. The tombs of Egypt, most of the tombs were found from this manner. Like some farmer or a shepherd found a mummy or part of it, tried to sell it in the market, and then someone caught that. and then the team of archaeologists came. So that's a traditional way. Another way is you kind of read through ancient text and books and then try to find out the cities. So the city of Troy was found by a person called Henrik Schliemann. He just took the copy of the Iliad, and using the copy of Iliad, he located the place of Troy. So yeah, this is another way. The third way, now we kind of go into the more the electronic method, the new age methods. The best one is the satellite one. So what there are many times all the archaeological sites are buried under the ground. What satellite does is it's able to take multiple pictures of those sites at various points in the day. So it kind of builds a map of it. As you can see in the image, this is what would have been seen on the ground by any normal human. Now, as the satellite takes images of the sites, it finds that there are certain areas which are kind of the light is behaving very differently because there are certain contours and the shadows are different. So those kind of areas the satellite highlights. And then through that, people know that there are some structures below the ground which are kind of affecting the contours of that area. And so people start digging there. So this is a new way method. So in fact, the tomb of Genghis Khan, people are trying to find that using satellite method because people don't know where it is. And the entire Central Asia is a very vast area. You can't go digging around everywhere. So using satellite, people are trying to find his tomb. There are many other methods. So there is another method too with agriculture. So if there are certain, if there are structures below the ground, then the soil above is not that fertile. A farmer may find out there's a certain portion of land where his farms are growing well, while on certain portion his crops are dying. That can indicate that there's something below the ground. Then there is something called a magnetometer. It sends electrical signals into the ground. So people using a device called a magnetometer will roam around the plot and send signals into the ground. And what if it kind of hits a structure or if it hits some big artifact, it will reflect that signal back. So then people know there is something under the ground. So in that way, there are many new age methods to kind of find what's below and where we can find things. Now we'll move to something called dating. Now there are two types of, one is called relative dating. This was the method of the past where we did not know how old a certain artifact was. People had a fairly good estimate of when Middle Eastern cultures lived, like something like Sumerian or Babylonian. So people used to kind of compare any find with finds of Sumer or Babylon, and then used to kind of estimate this item is this much year old. So something more advanced than Babylonian or Sumerian culture would then be after that period, or something which is more crude, which would be before that period. So in 1960s, we came to a new method called absolute dating and the advent of carbon-14. So anytime you kind of have read on archaeology or history, you would have found out carbon-14 dating. Now what happens is carbon-14 is a carbon isotope and it is absorbable all living creatures. At the time of death, it is a carbon-14 would be at 100%. However, it kind of starts disintegrating into other elements over the course of time. And people know the rate at which carbon-14 decays. It gives it, so we kind of find out if carbon-14 is, say, as in given in the diagram, if we say only 50% of carbon-14 is left in the bones, then we can say this thing is around 5,700 years old. However, if it is say only 25% is remaining, then it is even further back in time. Your archaeology is not just no longer a pure arts field, but it is now kind of interlinked with everything else. So the first field, which is archaeology, is interlinked with the geology. Now, unless you kind of know at what level the item has been found, you will not be able to even date it properly. So geology plays a very important role. The stratification that we saw earlier, the strata of soil, is a very important concept that one has to know when one studies archaeology. The second thing is linguistics. So this is a cuneiform tablet. Many times an archaeologist will find out inscriptions from the past. So an archaeologist has to know which language he is dealing with and which culture he is dealing with. Now the biggest thing which has happened in archaeology is the influence of genetics. Genetics from the bones of the people who are in the past gives a very important tool to the archaeologist to find out how old that person was and how that person was related to all the other people in that area. So this example is about how all the fields are interlinked and how they kind of play with each other. So this is called mankind's great journey. So people found bones here, and this is the oldest skeletons in the world of human beings have found in Africa. So this is an archaeological part that people found skeletons here. Now I'll tell you a fun bit. When people migrated out of Africa, the first wave came around 100,000 years ago. Okay, just keep that date in mind. Now, but what genetics found out is none of the present day human beings are descendants of those people who came out of Africa then. That means those people died out. There was a second wave which came out of Africa around 70 to 80,000 years ago. Each and every human being on this planet, apart from those living in Africa, are descendant of those people who came out of Africa 80,000 years ago. Archaeology does not tell us that. Genetics tells us that. So people came out of Africa around 80,000 years ago. So there were two set kind of, then the people split. So one set of people went into South Asia and India, and the second set of people went into Europe. Now there's another fun bit about this genetics that I want to tell you. All human beings who are outside Africa have around 3% of Neanderthal DNA in them. So we are not only descended from Homo sapiens, but also descended from Neanderthals. That is, this is archaeology does not tell us that. Genetics tells us that we are also children of the Neanderthals. In fact, the blonde hair and blue eyes is a trait is what humans got from Neanderthals. So you can see how genetics is now playing a key role in how archaeology is determined. Okay, now from what would be the next step in the humankind journey? Say from South Asia. From India, people then split into two ways. One went into China, while the other went into South Asia. Now this is where geology plays a role. People did not go via boats to Indonesia. This was not underwater at that time. There was a big bridge which kind of connected today Thailand and Indonesia and Borneo. People just walked over, and this is what geology taught us. And people then, some people went into Borneo and Sumatra, while others went into China. The people from Borneo then went into Australia. So they went into Russia first. Now, from Russia, they kind of started going after the big mammoth herds, and then they crossed over into something today called Siberia. And then through something called Bering Strait, they crossed into North America. And from North America, they entered Central and South America. So this is the great journey of mankind, which does not only uses archaeology, but also uses genetics and geology as a part of it, and even climatology, because it was ice age. So these are how sciences play out in this field now. So if you guys now want to go more into it, you can do any of the diplomas or BA in Indian history and culture, or you can do a BA in archaeology, and museology is science of museum, of how do you manage a museum. So these are some of the undergraduate courses, and to the right are some of the best colleges in the country. So either the Banaras Hindu University or the Institute of Archaeology at New Delhi or the Kurukshetra University or the one at Bhopal. So these are some of the good places to learn archaeology. So how do you want to, if you want to enrich your knowledge further, the most important thing is to kind of, do critical thinking. These are the critical points that you have to know, that you have to challenge all assumptions. You have to suspend judgment till you have got all the data points right. Nothing in archaeology is cast in stone. If new evidence comes in, you should be able to, change your judgment and change your conclusion. Data is the most important. Even if something seems wrong against your belief, data trumps our beliefs. This is why in archaeology has a very important job. Your ideas has to be tested at every point in time. Mistakes happen. There is no problem in that. And there are many, you should always consider all possibilities, but you never should accept them. You should consider, but you should only critically, after critical investigation, accept them. Say on Instagram and Twitter, you can follow, there are many good museum handles. You can start following them, and through them, you can get into other people who are kind of more archaeologists, more specialized. So you can start following museums on Instagram and handles. So that will kind of, the entire world of archaeology will kind of open up to you from there. Join the local library. That's the biggest thing. Get in the habit of reading. An archaeologist has to read. Most of the cities will have good old libraries. Try to join them. And third, and the most important point, consider everything on WhatsApp to be fake. If any historical fact or archaeological fact comes on WhatsApp, just consider it to be fake. Only after you kind of critically examine it, question it, then you should be able to take it at value.